Welcome to the Get Out There and Get Known podcast. Join Pam Perry, veteran PR strategist, Emmy award-winning producer and publisher of Speakers Magazine, who will show you how to crack the code in getting out there to get known. Each week, she either interviews her media friends, PR colleagues, or she just goes solo, offering you strategies on publicity, publishing, and platform building. So listen up to hear how to get booked on media places and on superstar stages. Now, here's your host, Pam Perry.
Hey there. It is a new show and it's a new month. We are talking about November's issue of Speakers Magazine. That is one of the ways to get out there, get known. The lady on the cover actually won the Top Speakers Award for Women's Issue at the Speak Sell Shine event. So that's all in the magazine, but I just want to kind of put that little plug in before we kind of talk about what we're going to talk about, which is leadership. And she's a leader. She has been in government for over 20 years. And you know what's happening in our government right now. There's a lot of furlough people, and she's one of them. But one of the things that even if you work for a corporation or things you're getting downsized, you saw what happened with Amazon and all of that. What do you do? What do leaders do? How do they communicate that to their employees? How does a leader, if they're let go, how do they even put their brand out there so that they get? I have talked to some people who said they have been looking for work for over 17 months. It's the situation that's going on in the economy. And so what we're going to talk about today is really authentic leadership. Dr. Sherrie Johnson is going to be joining us today. There she is. Hey there. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. How are you? Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. So one of the things I see on your LinkedIn that you talk about authentic leadership. But before we get into that, I want people to know a little bit about who you are, who you serve, and what your background is. I know you have a couple of, I guess you say, career pivots. So let's tell us about when you made some of the initial things that you're going into communications and then made the pivot over into organizational leadership.
Okay, all right. So sounds good. So originally, I was a broadcast reporter and anchor for about 19 years. And then I decided that I wanted to try something different. So I left broadcasting. I was an anchor and reporter, and I moved into public relations and communications. And for about 12 years, I worked in executive management, leading award-winning teams, and basically overseeing the communications project. Many of those included 24-hour cable stations, as well as writing press releases, marketing, rebranding, website redevelopment, everything that helped tell the story of the organization. And so when I began to lead communication teams, I decided to go back to school. I had my bachelor's in journalism and mass communications. And then I decided to go back to school and get my master's in communications and public relations, which was on the other side of the camera. Okay. Because now you're not in front of the camera. Now you're on the other side of the camera telling organization stories. And then after a few years, I said, now that I'm leading teams, I really want to step into that and understand that a little better. And so I went back and got my doctorate in organizational leadership with a concentration in organizational development. And that was very helpful. The thing I really liked about master's and doctorate was you could learn about the philosophy and the theory on Monday, and then Tuesday you could actually put it into practice, which is something that I really, really enjoyed because it was practical, hands-on learning. And after spending time, in that space, leading teams, I decided to step out on faith and open my own consulting firm. And so now I have Sherrie Johnson Communications, LLC, and I work with leaders and to help them more effectively communicate, whether it's to their staff, to their teams, or to external audiences, their stakeholders. Believe it or not, leaders sometimes don't know how to communicate. So you cannot take it for granted that they know how to communicate. And so that's where I step in to help and assist with that and help them to communicate in an authentic way. And so
So
it's been
let's kind of
challenging.
let's take
Yes.
it back. So you were
Okay.
a on the other side of the camera
Yes.
for say 19 years, and you
Yes.
basically had to didn't start there, but you worked your way up. So give a little bit for those who are going into broadcasting what that looked like. Were you an intern? Did you work at print? Did you have to write stories? Did you have to
Mhm.
learn equipment? What that looked like, and then were people pitching you when you were uh, on the air as a reporter? Because what people want to know, get out there, get known, is like, okay, well, how do I get out there and get known? What is it that I really need to do in order for? Is it the producer that has to say the green light to the person? Is it the anchor? Is it just anybody who is just at the station that can to assignment editor? So give us like I guess you would say the flow chart of an organization and what that would look like.
Okay, so that's a very good question. Because sometimes when you have organizations, people just say, write a press release or just send a press release, send a press release.
Mhm.
Everything is not a press release. Everything is not newsworthy. It has to answer the so what question. You have to tell a story. What is the story behind it? You can't just, put something on the news for the sake of putting it on. There has to be a reason. There has to be, something that tells a story. And that's what it's hard to get people to understand. They just think you're just supposed to snap your fingers and things are supposed to be on the air, and it doesn't work that way. So yeah, you do have assignment managers that you will take in the information. But sometimes too, it also helps if you know and build relationships with some of the reporters,
Yeah.
because a lot of times reporters, come to the station, they have to give story ideas. And it's great if they can cover the story ideas that they pitch. So it is a good idea to build relationships, with the different reporters. Some reporters have a beat, like your health reporter or your education reporter or your environmental reporter. So if there is a reporter that has a specific beat, whether it's politics, environments, it's a good idea to get to know that person, build a relationship, and actually ask that person, what makes a story? What would make you come out and cover this? And they would be happy to tell you because they don't want people to waste their time and they want a good story. They want a good story. So, it's a good idea to build those relationships, and it's helpful to build relationships with the reporters and sometimes anchors as well.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. That is a round of applause because so many times people, especially authors and speakers, they just want to pitch ads. And I said, that's pitching your book. It's just really not about them. It's all about you. And it doesn't have any value for a audience to listen to. I said, because if it's so self-serving and it doesn't have anything to do with the news of that station or what they're trying to cover, it's really just an ad. And you need to go down to the advertising department for that. And so
Right.
people don't really quite understand what really matters when it comes to news. What is news? Now, it's different for every station. It's different for a newspaper than it would be for a magazine, for a podcast. What it is their audience is tuned into is what you need to tune into. And that's what I really want people to understand. They think that, oh, I have a brand new book. That's news. No, we got millions of new books every single year.
That's right.
So that's one of the things. So I'm gonna make a pivot, a strong pivot. So when you launched your book, how did you promote your book?
So when I, pitched my book, I took it from the standpoint of there are thousands of employees, staff members that are suffering from mental illness at the hands of leaders that are unethical and gaslighting them. And what I mean by gaslighting is sometimes a leader may do something underhanded to a person. And then when that person confronts them, they act innocent, like, I don't know what you're talking about, or, something's wrong with you, knowing that they are doing things behind the scene. And sometimes research has shown that is causing some employees to have mental health issues at the hands of unethical leaders. And
Yeah.
so I pitched my book that way, that a number of employees are suffering at the hands of unethical leaders, and there is a significant problem, and we need to talk about that problem. So you have to present a problem that is, worth their time and their interest. And I put it that way because, not just, oh, here's another leadership book, but what specifically do you talk about in the book? And we talk a little bit about the mental health of the employees that are suffering and struggling at the hands of unethical leaders.
Or what do they say? A boss, a terrible boss, a
Yes.
terror boss, those kind of things. It
Yeah.
reminds me of there's a book here. This one is Hire the Right Whom. And
Mm,
so the whom is really talking about people who have the work ethic, the heart, the optimism, and maturity. Omar L. Harris, he's on LinkedIn as well. But
mhm,
really it's going towards leaders who are looking beyond a resume. So a leader, uh, CEO, CFO, whatever, they're looking for C-suite people or even just
mhm,
employees in general,
mhm.
not look at just the resume, not just
Yeah.
look at their degrees, but looking at
Mhm.
this part, the work ethic, the heart, the optimism, and maturity. And he kind of goes into that as well because it is most people quit jobs because of bad
And
bosses.
bosses. Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
and then people who want to get hired, they're so with AI and everything, you can't really understand what a person's heart is from
Right.
a AI reading your
Mhm,
resume or what your work
mhm.
ethic is like. So
Yep.
those two things are really, really important. But the main thing for any leader is what you said is character,
Mhm.
making sure they're ethical, and
Yep.
then really authenticity. So, Dr. Sherrie, explain to you because you hear authenticity all the time. People say you got to be authentic. Oprah talks about being authentic. So, what is authenticity to you?
Well, the basically with my book, I take a look at the authentic leadership theory. So there's a whole theory behind it. And with the authentic leadership theory, that is a leader who is transparent,
Right.
who communicates well with employees, who is open, who is honest, and they have a certain amount of self-awareness. They know who they are. And that is an authentic leader under the authentic leadership theory. And so we encourage leaders to, not fake it till you make it, but just be yourself. And employees will respect that so much more than you trying to be something you're not. Because
Mhm.
people are smart and they know that. They know when you're faking it. And no one, hates it worse than working for a boss that doesn't know what they're doing. But if you are open and honest and say, "Hey team, let's come together, let's work together. I don't really know much about this, but if we work together, then we can get through it." And if you're honest about that, people will bend over backwards to help you and to come together. But
Mhm.
if you're, blaming everybody when the boss is the one that doesn't know what's going on, instead of just saying, "Hey, I messed up," accountability, taking
That part.
ownership for it. When people respect you, they will work so hard for you, for the company, and they'll be so committed. But when they don't respect you and no one wants to work for an unethical leader, then that's when there are performance issues and that's when there are problems.
Yeah,
But
and
if
that costs the
people are
company money.
open, it costs the company a lot of money. But if leaders are open, honest, no one's perfect. No one's perfect. And no one expects you to be. But if you are accountable and you speak up and you're open and honest, it goes a long way with your staff.
It does. And one of the things you said that they have to communicate well with their
Yes.
employees.
Yes.
So maybe this person and this is where personal development is should always be ongoing because
Mhm.
we are never going to be as empathetic as we'd like to be without some kind of development. But let's just say we have a leader that just talks really gruff to people, like
Mhm.
really mean, maybe condescending because that's just their way, that's their personality. I don't have to, build people up. They should just know, come to work, but they get a paycheck. That's enough affirmation that they need, that kind of thing. Now, there are people like that, And they will say, well, that's just me. That's my authentic self. I'm just going to be that way. How do you help someone transform into a better leader that knows how to communicate better? It's all about tonality. It's really about listening. It's a
Mhm.
lot of different things in the communication sphere. It's even their body language, uh,
Yes,
eye contact. Maybe they're shy.
absolutely.
Maybe someone is really shy, and then the other person is thinking like they're not shy. They just really dislike me. No, maybe they're just shy. So so how do you make a transformation? How do you do this executive coaching to help people communicate better so they understand that they are not communicating well with employees by maybe raising their voice or yelling or cussing? That
Mm,
could be their way. That's their
mm,
authentic self. So
mm.
so I'll let you answer that.
I do training, professional development training, and serve as a facilitator. And we have a training that's called Skillful Communication, and it is an excellent course. It's an excellent course. And it goes over all of those type of things that you just mentioned. And,
Tonality.
one of the things for coaching, there's a difference between coaching and consulting. So, with consulting, you're sort of telling them what they need to do. With coaching, you sort of let them come to the answer and let them figure it out for themselves with your guidance and asking questions.
Mhm,
So, I think leadership training, I think leadership coaching, asking certain questions and letting that person come to the understanding on their own. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink it. So sometimes you can't force people. You have to let them come to that understanding on their own.
mhm.
And so I think with some personal coaching, executive coaching, I think a good coach could help them come to that realization, but they have to come to it on their own. It's not anything you can tell them, because when you tell someone something, it's like, I'm not no, that's not right. But if you start asking a series of questions and letting them answer, and then sometimes they come to the realization on their own. And that's the best thing, because when you're coaching leaders, you have to let the leader drive. You have to let them drive.
Mhm.
I'm not the driver. They have to be the driver. They have to control that session, and they have to come to that understanding on their own. It's not
Mhm.
something you can tell them, it's something that they have to learn within themselves and come to that realization on their own.
That's
But you
true. But
help them, you help guide them, because when you're telling them, it's not going to work, because you don't know what you're talking about. That's not true. That's not true. So they have to come to that realization with proper guidance and coaching. Come to that realization on their own, on what kind of leader do they want to be, how do they want to communicate to their staff, and let them come to that realization on their own.
I have this that's good. I have this saying
Hmm.
that what you do, you're from broadcast and then went into communications and now organizational development. And so as a publicist, and I've been a publicist for a long time, I
Hmm.
found that as the years have gone on, I have to tell people I'm a publicist, not a therapist,
Yeah.
because it's like I'm just doing the job of promoting you and really helping you amplify and market your message. The other stuff about what you need to do in terms of your personality and things like that, it's like I
Yeah.
can't help with that. And
Yeah.
a good example is when someone comes to me and say they're a CEO and they're very successful in their business and they
Hmm.
want to get out there. They want to get out there
Hmm.
and get known. So we do the press releases and it's like, okay, we're booking you on different podcasts and we are putting you on TV shows and magazines. And they are maybe late at all of the interviews, or maybe they say the
Yeah.
wrong things that
Mhm.
could offend people,
Mhm.
or off color jokes.
Mhm.
There's been things where I'm thinking like, "What is wrong with you?"
Yeah.
It's like, you're very successful in business, but your personality or your personal development side needs some help. And I'm like and I
Well,
told
send them over here to some executive coaching. I'll be
yeah.
happy to help them.
That is it. It's like I'm a publicist, not a therapist. I can't help
Absolutely.
those rough edges. Now, obviously, I can media coach, but some of the things like character issues, like showing up on time, or
Yep.
even just being grateful to the host.
Yep.
for having them
Yep.
on their show or
Mhm.
taking the
Mhm.
time to interview them for a print publication. So,
Mhm.
those are the kind of things that I look
Yep.
at, and it's like, "Oh my goodness." I said, being a coach is probably the hardest thing, but I
Yes.
also say that being an entrepreneur just by itself is really its own personal development program because it pulls on all strings of you that you may
Yes.
not want to use. Like if you're working a job, you're probably working in a silo. This is one thing
Mhm.
you can do, work on. But when you're entrepreneur, everything, you
Yes.
have to work on all the things.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
is, I tell you, it's the best personal development program you will ever have. You learn about sales and marketing, but you also learn about accounting and finance and integrity and
Mhm.
just really about how people communicate
Mhm.
and work with you. It's so much different,
Mhm.
and, I find what do you find is, like, the biggest challenge, I think, in terms of or the biggest problem I see maybe people leaving from being an employee to an entrepreneur? What do you think the biggest hurdle they have to overcome?
It's a lot more work. It's a lot more work when you are an entrepreneur, because it's all you. There's not like a huge team. It's all you. So, and you're working really hard to establish yourself. So just the amount of work, it is a
Mhm.
lot of work, a lot of networking and, just getting out there and meeting people and you're doing it for you, you're doing it for your company. So I think just probably the amount of work that you put into it's a lot more. It's a
And
lot more.
and I think one of the things, if you're an extrovert, and I would
Mhm.
assume that you're probably an extrovert because you majored in communication, so people that's exciting for you, talking to
Mhm.
people, listen
Yes,
to their stories. But if you're an introvert,
it's hard.
it's hard because
It's
you
hard.
when you
Yeah,
just said networking and then
yeah,
someone is like, "Oh, no,
yeah,
I don't know what to say.
yeah.
I don't wanna just go into that room and just start
Getting
networking."
out there.
And
Yeah, it's
it's
hard.
that's really why I do the show, just to explain to people it is just a part of what it
Hmm.
is that we have to do, whether we are entrepreneur or entrepreneur, because if you're inside of a
Hmm.
company, you
Hmm.
also have to get out there and get known. So talk a little bit
Absolutely.
about that. Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, I've worked in external affairs and communications, community engagement, and so you're absolutely right. Even if you work in for an organization, in certain roles, you do have to get out and about. And so, in external affairs within an organization, it was my job to get out and about and meet people and make connections to connect them with the organization. So that part was actually very helpful because I
Mhm.
knew how to do that. I've always been a member of the Chamber of Commerce for an organization. And so now with my company, I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce representing my company. So it's very exciting. It's very exciting. I've done these things, but for an organization. So now doing it for my company, it is very, very exciting. And, even though it is a lot of work and, you got to get out there and I have a young son, so I have a toddler at home. So, just having to navigate
Engage.
and be there with him and everything and stuff. So what I do is like, maybe one or two a month, I'm going
Yeah.
to go,
Yeah.
but I can't be out there like every day and every night. But I'm like, try to be strategic. And I'm going to go to this event. I'm going to go to that event. You can't be everywhere. You can't be all things to all people. And I do believe in work-life balance, and it is
Mhm.
important
It is.
and that is one of the things I love about consulting and having my own business is it
You
being
can do
able
your
to
own
have that,
schedule.
have my own schedule. And that has been the best part about it. It is a lot of work, but you just have to be more strategic and
Yeah.
figure out where, yes, you need to get out there and get known, but just being strategic on when. You can't do it every single night. But on this day I can go do this, and on that day I can go do that. And so that's been very very exciting.
And that really does, remind me of when I started my company
Mhm.
in 2000.
Mhm.
And,
Oh,
it
wow.
started because my daughter at that time was about 3 or
Okay.
so,
Mhm.
And I didn't want to be I was a PR director for the Salvation Army, and we had to go into the
Mhm.
office every single day. I love the work, but I
Mhm.
didn't want to be tied to a schedule because for some
Yeah.
reason, I wanted to be home with my daughter. Now, I did start my business, and then I sent her to daycare because I realized I need to work during the day. So she but so we sent her
Mhm.
to daycare, but it
Mhm.
was like I could if I wanted to, I could go up there and see her, or I just whenever
Yeah.
I could pick her up if I wanted
Yeah.
that particular day, we wanted to go to the zoo, whatever. So, but
Mhm.
I'm thinking if that were today
Mhm.
and a lot of people are working from home, would that have
Mhm.
still been the same? Because my
Mm.
daughter now, she's almost 30,
Yeah.
she works from home
Mhm.
and she can, you know, do whatever
Yeah.
from her laptop. I mean, if she,
Yeah.
I mean, she's still doing the work, but she's working from home. I said, if I would have had that choice
Yeah.
earlier in my
Yeah.
career, I don't
Yeah.
think. And so when I did decide to start my company, I
Mhm.
was working from home, and people thought back in 2000, "Oh my god,
Oh, I
thing
bet. Yeah.
this poor thing, she doesn't even have an office." It's like, "No, I don't
Unheard
want
of.
an office. I have a
Right.
computer, I have a phone." So those were the things, and then it really became a thing when I tried to build a team, and this was before co-working spaces, right? So now there people are coming in my home. So it was just a lot of different things that
Mhm.
are easier today that
Yeah.
a leader can provide that work-life balance for
Yes.
their employees if they want
Yeah.
to work hybrid, if they want to do that, if they want to work in a co-working space and or meet
Mhm.
at Starbucks. That was I
Right.
mean, that was kind of a thing, but it was not
Mhm.
really that much. But I'm like, "Oh my goodness." So, yeah, if you have a toddler, it is so much easier
It
now,
is.
I
It
think it
is
really
to
is.
make up your schedule, to make your schedule and decide, what you're gonna do, and I
And
think it's much easier.
people understand that you work from
Oh, yeah.
home, and then
Oh,
even,
yeah.
when we had the pandemic, that was
Mhm.
another part too as well.
Mhm.
It's like, "Oh, we're working from home." Well, the dog is barking or the kid is, but it
Yes.
was okay because
Yeah.
everybody's working from home. Okay, so the
Right.
dog is gonna bark or the cat's
Yeah.
gonna walk across the computer, whatever it is. That kind of thing. And that's being authentic. So when a lot of times it is, it's like, oh my goodness, it's like I gotta stop. And so it's different being authentic when you're face to face. And then when
Yes.
something like I was just on another podcast and our
Mhm.
computers was going in and out the internet. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need to let people know that
Mhm.
this is being crunchy because the internet was pulling from the stream yard.
Mhm.
So anyway, but what you said is just being honest with people
Yes.
and really
Mhm.
uh, empathetic
Yeah.
and really knowing what it is that is a leader, what it is that's important for your
Mhm.
team.
Yeah.
Because what's important to you may not be important to them, but try to be in the middle. And
That's
that's
true.
really
When
that's
they're
really
happy, they'll stay and there'll be less
yes,
turnover.
yes.
And then they'll respect you as a leader. But work-life balance is so important. And nowadays, many employees look for that in places where they work. And
Yeah,
nowadays too, more and more people are actually going back into the office. So yeah,
yeah.
they're and some people are walking away from jobs because they are going back into the office. So it's really like
That part.
telework.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that part.
but, there is more and more people are going back into the office. But yeah, when leaders are their authentic self, employees respect that and they want to work for those type of leaders. And when
Mhm.
leaders are unethical and not doing the right thing, those are the type of people that employees typically do not want to work for. They're going to do the bare minimum or they're going to leave. Mhm.
Mhm. And Cherie, you're CherrieSpeaks.com?
Yes, SherrieSpeaks.com. Yes, that is my
Okay.
website. Yes.
That's her website. Okay, so I'm
Yep.
gonna put that up there so people can see that.
Please. Yes, absolutely.
CherrieSpeaks.com.
Yes,
So that
absolutely.
is it. And so
Schedule a call, schedule a call. Love to
so
work with
how
you.
many times have people called you Sherrie? Because I know I called you Sherrie.
A
How
lot,
many times
more than I can count. It looks like Sherry, but it's Cherie. More than I can count. If I had a nickel. If
I
I
think
had a nickel.
I think if you probably because I do know a Cherie and she has one R
Mhm.
and it's SHR just E. And so
Yep.
yours is a IE, so it makes people
Yes.
want to say,
It does, it
yeah,
does.
yeah.
More
So that
times
so
than I can count, yes, and I have met people that Cherie, and so I've met different spellings, but yes,
yes.
it is Cherie, but it looks like Sherry.
Cherie speaks. So that is so Dr. Cherie, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you
today.
for
This has
having
been
me.
really good. Again,
Thank
the
you
book's
so much.
name is Authentic Leadership
Leadership in the Workplace. It's on
in the
Amazon.
Workplace. Yes,
Yes.
that is
Yes.
this. It's on Amazon. So that's
Mhm.
one of the things too. So make sure that you pick it up. And I think
Yes.
with what is going on in the turmoil in the workplace, it's
Mm.
really good to pick
Yes.
this book up. And also too, I want to
Absolutely.
introduce you to Omar as well, because you
Oh,
two could
yeah.
probably maybe do a webinar or something
Okay.
together because
Mhm.
once they are hired in, then they get the
Yep.
leadership training and that it's just it
Yes.
all kind of things. And the thing that is really important is
Mhm.
what the base of this is communication. So
Absolutely.
you really have a good
Absolutely.
background in that, and
And
that is
some
really
people
key.
feel like if they're talking that they're communicating, but that's not the case. If people aren't comprehending what you're saying, you're not communicating. And so that is the thing too, is
Mhm,
helping people
mhm.
to understand what is communication. So some people think because they're talking, they're communicating, and that's not the case. Even though you're talking, if people aren't comprehending what you're saying, you're not communicating. And so yeah,
That
just
part.
making sure that people are effective in their communications. And like I said, I have trainings, and I professional development. So happy to work with folks on that.
That is good, that is good, and people need to know that they
Yes,
can always have room for improvement, so don't feel like,
absolutely.
"Oh, that if
Yep.
I'm going to go get training or
Yeah.
go get coaching, that I'm not a
Mhm.
good person." No,
No.
you're a better person because you are
Yes.
seeking out information. So,
Absolutely. We're
yeah.
all learning that, that's why I went back to school and got my master's and got my doctorate. We're all, lifelong learner. We're all
Mhm.
learning, you're constantly learning, and that's a good thing. That's a good
That
thing.
is, that is. Well, thank you so much for being on Get Out There,
Thank
Get
you.
Known.
Thank
I
you for
love
having me.
having you. And then, if you want, Speakers Magazine is also available as well
Okay.
for another platform as well.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Take care. God bless.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Get Out There and Get Known podcast brought to you by PamPerryPR.com, where you'll get insider tips on how to build your platform, pitch the media, and promote yourself with confidence. Head over to PamPerryPR.com and get the exclusive video training on the 7 must-have marketing materials you need before you pitch in order to be considered in media places or superstar stages. PamPerryPR.com.